In a situation like Trump coin or any other coin that's launched, you're providing solutions where in any kind of traditional finance now, there's rules around insider trading. It's illegal for us to be on the side trading this coin. So are you guys going in and essentially helping, say, the VC firm, any investment professional, be able to coordinate and comply with a lot of these insider trading rules so that the employees aren't trading on the side?
Exactly. If you think about ZenLedger, we started in 2017. We started with retail, wanting to provide any person that shows up a really speedy answer and output for their tax situation, regardless of your portfolio. What we realized is the IRS couldn't do the math as well, right? So we copied and pasted our software and said, hey, use this copy. It's walled off from any of our customers. Use this software. It helps you calculate better. We realized that taxes are not going away. The better we make it for not only government to be efficient, but also individuals, then it makes sure easy pathway for everyone.
Welcome back to the Blockfield Podcast. We have Jonté Harrell, CFO and CRO at ZenLedger, here to us today in Chicago at the Security Traders Association of Chicago's Midwinter Meetings. Jonté, thanks for coming by.
Thanks, Jody.
Yeah. So want to sit down. I know you just flew in for this panel you had this afternoon. You'll be on there with BitGo, Nathan Stump, we just had on the podcast yesterday. So we'll kind of recap that after. You actually have the panel. Don't want to give any spoilers away, but it's been a super busy week with inauguration on Monday. And there's also, we just watched Trump's speech at the World Economic Forum. So a lot of stuff in the air, a lot of stuff moving, but wanted to take this opportunity just to talk with you a lot around taxes. What can we expect in the Trump term? What can we dive into? And also help educate a lot of our audience on, hey, here's what to actually expect. Here's where you need to be prudent and actually file your taxes. They're not going away anytime soon. So, Jonté, the first question would be, you've been traveling a lot. You met Michael Saylor last week in Miami. What has been the overall feeling in the past 2 weeks, really since Monday with the inauguration?
Yeah, firstly, thanks for having me. I would say it's been a mixed bag of feelings. Obviously, the election was hard fought, and there are folks that feel this is kind of doors off for crypto, go to the moon, throw any type of acronym that we've come up with, we're all going to make it. And so taxes is definitely in the sights of many in terms of, hey, what's going to happen? I think it's very obvious in Washington that there's a flurry of executive orders. There's a flurry of questions about what about the SEC? What about the CFTC? And the IRS, everyone knows, collects nearly $5 trillion annually from income tax. And so it's one of the government's largest sources of income.
Yeah.
And so to think that that goes away, I just think that's not going to happen. I think Trump, as he had his last kind of presidency, he lightened taxes for corporations. He incentivized some things for individuals. But by and large, if we don't bring in those tax revenues, then we have a fiscal problem really quickly. Mm-hmm. And so I think that's the landscape is there will be changes. But if folks think that taxes will just go away, I think that's very unlikely.
That's a really good point. I think what we've seen, at least on the macroeconomic side, is that a lot of people are at least accepting that the fiscal deficit, you're looking at the overall, government debt and spending, isn't probably going to get better under a Trump term. So it's good to see people having a little more sober mentality of hey, we don't think his approach to tariffs or his approach to tax cuts is going to lower the debt. But as we look at things like taxation itself and digital assets, we hear rumors and people getting excited about potential U.S. coins and U.S.-based digital asset projects like Ripple, Cardano, that they're not going to be taxed. Is there any likelihood that he can give favoritism to any of these U.S. projects over maybe an overseas blockchain foundation?
I think that could be likely. I think we need to go back in time a bit. China's had the yuan digital currency for some time. Now, they have different reasons for releasing it, right?
Yeah.
It's largely to understand the flows of money, to understand what their population is doing under a communist regime. In the US, I think that there are tons of folks, whether it's think tanks, economists, senators, the Fed, Treasury, folks want to protect the US dollar. And so if you start, let's say, derivating the dollar, it gets really interesting in terms of how to track that. I think stable coins represent the most probable path to a digital dollar, if you will.
Yeah.
If Bitcoin is digital gold and there's this digital fill in the blank and the US dollar is next, I think that's feasible. And frankly, if you look across all the investment banks, they've been working and having conversations with the government on this topic for years.
Yeah.
JP Morgan has its own coin that trades. I won't even put out the numbers because I know they're exponentially growing, but the last time I tracked it, it was trading billions a day. And that's JP Morgan's stablecoin in-house product. And so as we think about Tether, Ripple, all the other stable coins that we now know are not going away, they are stable versus a Lunaterra.
Very true.
That was not, it was more a misnomer of a stable coin. I think these products will stay around. And the question is who, in terms of the corporate banking finance sector, adopts those and starts using those for their own purposes. PayPal, Visa, MasterCard, MoneyGram. Mm-hmm. I would expect all of those players to be in the space. And so it begs the question, if we now have these corporates tracking things in a very efficient way, and we now have Doge, which is this government organization trying to make things more efficient, then that marries very nicely. Because Bitcoin, digital assets, stable coins, it's the most efficient way to track. It's all on chain.
And from really looking at some of these players that are really getting involved in the next wave of, the Doge, group, or I guess organization, within the government, as well as you have Cynthia Lummis out of Wyoming, was just named as was like head of a certain like crypto department within the U.S. government, and a lot of these people were all in the room on Saturday at the crypto ball in Washington D.C. And I know from the ZenLedger team, you had one or two people that were in attendance. What does something like that kind of event signal to you? Do you see this whole new wave of interest and people courting favors in front of the king? And you see, like, say, Brad Garlinghouse from Ripple in the same room as Michael Saylor and someone that owns, I think we were talking about 2.1% of the Bitcoin supply. And what might have been something where it's like, hey, these are two very different crowds. And then you have Eric Trump or Don Jr., someone that's like new to the space and they're trying to push World Liberty Financial and where that fits in. What was some of your knee-jerk reactions or thoughts, to that event?
I think it was positive that you had a collection of crypto digital asset leaders that all were aligned on the same mission. Of course, business is competitive. And so you're jostling for who wins on volumes, on revenues, on talent. But when you think about it, with this industry that's effectively been on its back foot with regulation, with lawsuits, scandal for so long, you're stronger with a group as opposed to, one company. So I think you saw that with Stand with Crypto, right? I think it's a nonprofit, maybe it's a PAC too, but it's a coordinated effort. You saw this for a while with associations, Blockchain Association and others that are effectively bringing together leaders so that you can basically see that you have more in common than not. And it behooves the industry to have its kind of wish list and what it views as success versus I think this should be the winner in terms of policy versus someone else. And Loomis and others in terms of Congress, they've been fighting a fight. And so it's good to see folks be elevated, regardless of party, to a place where policy can actually be put out there, it's transparent, and you can actually have some rules. Because when you think about it, crypto's global, but the deepest capital markets, the place where most founders are building, is here. And so if you make the rules clear and transparent, then that's an influx of capital. It's an influx of builders. And we want those builders building here because that means the American flywheel, that dream grows.
Yeah. Something that happened at the same time as the crypto bull, the Trump meme coin, which is, as we've talked about, has surprisingly been a topic of conversation here at Stack in Chicago. So security traders and people looking at like, hey, how does this, the utility isn't anything different than any other meme coin that we've seen. But the fact that the prestige of a U.S. president launching one right before inauguration is really what changes the game. Yeah. And it pierces the veil of serious digital assets versus, say, like a shitcoin that people would have. In your mind, what was your reaction to it? And then second, like, how do you navigate what's serious, what's long-term, like digital assets, blockchain, and the use of the technology from something that's just pure speculation, never has value, utility, maybe a culture coin, which could be valuable. But what was your hot take, your first like gut reaction?
I think the first gut reaction is scam.
Fair, same.
Second reaction is, oh, you got hacked. And then it settles in, okay, well, Elon is likely in proximity of Trump and his family and team. So this is real. And so you naturally look at it. It's kind of the explosion of the space from early days to now has been hard to keep pace with. DeFi, staking, restaking, liquidity, derivatives, stablecoins, you could go on. So I think the crypto audience being tech leaning, especially fintech, you're used to seeing something new and trying to figure it out and saying, okay, Solana based. All right, what wallet?
Yeah.
You look at the volumes and your eyes widen because the volumes were absurd. And I think you just hadn't seen that amount of wealth be created so quickly since 2020, 2021, when SPACs and direct listings, and there was kind of this NFT tulip boom, right? So we hadn't seen that in a while. And so I think it's kind of a jolt to folks. And then I know it's very controversial, not only within the American population that a president is kind of behind this, but it's controversial that right now you have a lot of folks that got red pilled at the same time. And there's some losses behind that. So typically if you want someone to ease into crypto, start with Bitcoin, start with Ether, ease into it. If you start with a meme coin, well, we know how that ends for most meme coins. And so I think there was a collective gasp in the industry that this could end really badly. And as a result, be another mark on crypto.
Yeah. Very fair point. I mean, most meme coins do go to zero.
Yeah.
Most traders on Pump.Fund, or 90% of them, are in the red or never actually are profitable. And I think it opens up a lot of doors to like, what if someone's trying to court favors? It's Lithuania or it's someone in the Middle East and they market buy a lot of the Trump coins and that provides them some kind of favoritism.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Nick Carter's been very vocal.
Yeah.
He invested in ZenLedger, House Island, great people. So I think there's some well-meaning folks that are enthusiastic about crypto, but realize that we need to be cautious about things like this. Trump coin, okay, did well. I think word's still out, but Malaya coin is not doing so well.
Yeah.
So it's kind of this tale of two meme coins. I think when you think about the space, And I said the space has kind of exploded in terms of like complexity and the detail of it, depend and like just you have so many facets of crypto now. Speculation is it's always part of the DNA and the nature because the original white paper was peer-to-peer transactions, but we live in a capitalist society.
Yeah.
And if something has been the number one return for a decade plus, expect for everyone to say, okay, I want to get in. And there's an expectation of return with it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And you mentioned Nick at Castle Island. I know has been someone that's been a very hardcore Bitcoin early on, but then saw the value in stable coins and adapted to that. And he was someone that I know and follow closely, was very bullish on Trump as the U.S. president, changing crypto regulation, going after choke point and the debanking of a lot of crypto companies and crypto users. But then it's good to also have him objectively say, hey, like this isn't good for what we were campaigning for. So for you guys at ZenLedger and what you're cooking on, and you guys for a while have been working with the IRS as a official contractor and like supplier, in a situation like a Trump coin or any other coin that's launched, you're providing solutions where in any kind of like traditional finance now, there's rules around insider trading. So let's say a VC firm goes in, gives the Trump coin team money to provide initial liquidity and launch this token. It's illegal for us to be on the side on like a hype or on any kind of app trading this coin. So are you guys going in and essentially helping, say, the VC firm, any investment professionals be able to coordinate and comply with a lot of these insider trading rules so that the employees aren't trading on the side?
Exactly. And maybe to have step back a bit, if you think about ZenLedger, we started in 2017. We started with retail, wanting to provide any person that shows up a really speedy answer and outputs for their tax situation. So regardless of your portfolio, what we realized is the IRS couldn't do the math as well, right? So we copied and pasted our software and said, hey, use this copy. It's walled off from any of our customers. Use this software and it helps you calculate better. And that's been a great relationship. We realized that, again, going back to my point, that taxes are not going away. And so the better we make it for not only government to be efficient, but also individuals, then it makes an easy pathway for everyone. And I'll give one example. If you think about getting a letter from the IRS, it's a very kind of, let's say, daunting kind of thing. You got to think about representation. You got to call and talk to someone. You might have to show up in the office. And so like if we can prevent those from going out because someone says, I use ZenLedger. And the IRS is like, okay, well, your calculations match ours because we use ZenLedger. So it's like, great, easy. No letter goes out. No complication, no confusion, right? And so what we found out along the way is enterprises also had a problem. But it was not just taxes, it was compliance. If you think about not only just insider trading, so we're not going to pretend everyone is kind of like doing bad stuff. But if you think about those that trade a lot, if you're in finance, if you work for an investment bank, you have to disclose your trades, stocks, bonds, et cetera. And crypto is kind of a wild card for that. So now you have your investment banking leadership or your VC or hedge fund leadership saying, hey guys, we don't want to do this manually, like track you. So we're just outlawing crypto. If you work for us, you can't trade. And we saw some of those policies and that made no sense. And so like that hurts the industry. And so we basically said, how do we use our software to basically allow someone to onboard quickly? And now your employer gets a read-only version of what you just bought and your portfolio. And so it eliminates a lot of conflicts of interest and accusations of insider trading.
Yeah. And for what we spoke with the IRS back in, I think, August, September at permissionless. And in many ways, like it's hard to hire because if you have to like stop holding digital assets, but that's what you're passionate about, so that's why you're knowledgeable in the space, either hiring people that are outside of it, so they're not hiring crypto natives, and so they're just not as adept at approaching these issues, or they're making them divest and they have to make those sacrifices and changes and the opportunity cost of that.
Exactly. I think, and we've seen this in terms of the assault, if you will, on crypto 2.0.
Yeah.
Because if you didn't want to understand the tech, if you didn't want to deal with this new environment where it's a 24/7 trading environment, right?
Yeah.
Like global, money moves quickly, it's immutable, can't get it back if you send it. Like you can't sue someone and try to get it back. It doesn't work that way. And so if you didn't want to figure that out, you just basically said, can't trade crypto, or sorry, we're not in it. And so I think the more that folks build tools, infrastructure, then that makes the space better. And it allows kind of this kind of proliferation of the industry, as opposed to, right, TradFi, it's used the same rails for decades and there's a new way. And so that way is very adjacent blockchain to crypto.
Yeah. One thing I've seen and like learned going from traditional investing into crypto investing has been just, as you mentioned, 24/7 markets. Things are never stopping. And say managing dividends on like Coca-Cola, say it's like a quarterly dividend, you could do that on a spreadsheet.
Yeah.
But if you're looking at like, say, staking certain assets, a lot of proof of stake blockchains, if that's happening every single day where you keep getting these, then like suddenly you make one buy. And so you're like, oh, this is a single transaction. But then suddenly, like at the end of the year, you have 364 other transactions from all these like staking income that comes in, as well as if you start playing around with these DeFi protocols that hopefully are a little bit safer than Anchor Protocol with Terra Luna, but that have attractive yields. You're putting your money to work. Those have a lot of transactions involved. And like, are you getting these like liquid staking tokens? And there's a lot of complexity now that I think people are trying to like figure out. We got a busy day today. I know you have to prepare for your panel. So one last like little bit spicy question. Do you think there's a chance that SBF gets a pardon?
Yes. And I think it could happen in the next 6 months. And I say that because Silk Road guy, Ross, just got out and he was one of the, you could say, OGs of crypto. There are other activities going on, so I won't talk about those. But I think folks deserve a second chance. And if we're talking about January 6th, folks now getting out and also on the Biden side, right? There's a lot of pardons that everyone kind of double take, right? So I think if we're America and we believe in freedom, we believe in if you pay the fine and do the time, then you can redeem yourself. That guy's going to get out and he's going to launch another exchange and there's some VCs that will back him.
1,000%.
Yeah. So I'll stop there. I think I've answered your question. Yeah.
Andreessen's already written a check.
I don't know if it's Andreessen, but somebody's going to write a check.
Yeah.
Andreessen has, right. I think they've got their own investments.
Yeah. I mean, that's going to be a fun one to follow. Sean and I were talking about that yesterday. It was like, oh, this is SBF. Like, this is on the table. And there's, as you said, there's a lot of similar level pardons that have been given by both sides in the past, like, couple months. So it's a higher likelihood than we think. We actually should check Polymarket to see what the odds are.
Polymarket is probably a good source to check that.
Yeah. So, Jonté, this is amazing. Looking forward to your panel later this afternoon. We'll have some updates and hopefully some pictures. And if they'll let us record, we'll do some recording of that. And
Great.
Yeah, always a pleasure.
Thanks, Jay.